What's up guys, it's Brad from JBHMEDIA here, back again with another Blender 3D shot breakdown. Today I'm just going to go over this bus drive-by shot and just kind of explain how I combined the CG into the live action and just kind of go through how I made it. Alright, so let's get started here. So the first thing I did was track the footage, and I actually ended up using a tripod track. Now I didn't actually have a tripod, but I was just standing in one position and I was just panning the camera handheld. When you're not really doing any complicated camera moves and you're just standing in one spot, just click that tripod track and it helps Blender figure out the scene a little bit better. I mean, you can experiment with it, but in my experience, if you're standing and you don't actually have a tripod, but you're just standing in one position, just kind of barely panning the camera over, that's a tripod track. So I tracked the footage using our tripod track, and then I set the footage as a background using this button right here, and then I also click this setup tracking scene. And this is a very helpful button because what it does is it adds a plane for shadows only, so you don't have to set that up later. I mean, I don't even think I know how to set up a shadows only layer without this. I'd always just click that setup tracking scene and it sets up a nice plane in your scene that will only show shadows on an alpha channel. Anyway, moving on. Whenever I shot this footage, I actually took an HDR environment map with my phone using a app called Photosynth. What I did is I stood here on the street about where the bus would be, and I opened up this app and then started taking pictures of the environment around me, and then the app stitched together all those photos and made me a little panoramic shot. So I had a HDR environment of the actual environment that I shot this footage in, which was great. So I just stood where the bus was, took pictures around myself, and had the app do the work for me. So I emailed the HDR environment map that I took to myself, and then I opened it up in my world settings and set it as my background. So I don't know if you can see here, but if I go to rendered, see if I have this set to transparent. But yeah, this is our you can see this is our, whoops. See here. Okay, so as you can see, I stood here, took a bunch of pictures, and now the bus has realistic reflections around it because it's interacting with the environment. So yeah, those are the photos. It's a pretty good application. There's a little problem here. It's had some problems stitching together the photo up here, but in general, good application. Get some realistic reflections using that HDR, and yeah. Anyway, enough of that. Anyway, the next step I took was I imported this 3D bus model, and I have to give credit where credit's due. This model is not mine. I did not make this. I got this from HJ Media Studios on blendswap.com, and they did a really good job with it. They even had some pretty good textures that came with it. One of the things I noticed about the texture was just a little bit too perfect for me. A big mistake a lot of people make when they're trying to combine CG with live action is not adding all those little imperfections. So I wanted to change a little bit about this material of the bus. So I'll show you what I did here in the node setup. I'll click on that material and I'll bring it up in our node editor. So I did some pretty basic things to our bus material here. Let's see if we can show here. Okay. So first thing I did was I added an RGB curves to the bus map that they provided for us, and I actually decreased the contrast. Now the reason I did that was because I shot the live action footage flat, so there wasn't a lot of contrast in the footage I was trying to combine this CG with. So I wanted the texture of the bus to have a low contrast as well, so just to kind of blend the elements a little bit better. Another thing I did was lower the saturation of our bus diffuse layer as well for that same region, because I shot the footage flat with lower saturation. In general, you want to just try to match your materials and your textures to your live action footage. Okay, so other than that, I did add a few more things here. The bump map was already on the 3D model, but I'll show you what I did add was a little specular map. I ran this bus diffuse map through Crazy Bump, generated a specular map, and then ran it through a mix shader with a glossy node here for a specular map. And then I wanted to add a little bit of dirt grime over the bus. As you can see on the model here, this black grime on the bus, that wasn't there originally. Originally it looked Let's see if we can get it without this. Originally, if we take this off, you can see it's all clean. And if we add the dust, we get a little grime there, as you can see right there. So a little trick to add a little imperfection to your model. So what I did to do that was use the original UV map that was already came with the model. Took a metal plate texture and then ran that through a multiply node and then into a mix shader in the factor input here. So that's how you can create a kind of simple dust layer. Just kind of overlay a rusted texture using the multiply node through a mix shader into the factor input. So after I set up the materials on this bus, I aligned the model in the shadows only plane. There it is right there. I aligned the camera in a position where this would be along the same geometry as the road. And then after I did that, I rigged the bus using a basic driver rig so that as it moved forward and backward, the wheels rotated as well. So the first thing I noticed when I rendered my first image here was that the shadows seemed kind of unrealistic. So what you do to fix this is you want to go to this multiply node outside your shadows, the only layer, and you want to go to the factor and increase it. And that'll make your shadows generally darker, your shadows only plane. And that fixed a lot of it right there. Just by increasing that to all the way to 1, you get a much darker shadow and a much more realistic result. So if you ever have problems with the shadows, I would say mess with this one and see if you can darken it down a little bit. But that was the main thing I did in the compositor. Other than that, I added a vector blur, increased that a little bit. Then I increased the saturation a little bit because I thought it was a little too desaturated for the scene. And then I kind of darkened it just barely and then added a quick fog glare. Now I don't know if you can see that. But I didn't really do much in the compositor. I kind of I got away with doing just kind of a basic scene setup. I changed the shadows and that's about it. So yeah, I rendered this as a PNG sequence with the live action in the background, and then I moved it into After Effects. Alright, so after rendering out our PNG sequence in Blender, I brought in our sequence along with the live action footage into After Effects for some final touching up. The main thing I did was rotoscope out these foreground objects and foreground trees, the stop sign, and then the trees in the end here. As you can see, the bus isn't supposed to be in front of this tree, so I did some minor rotoscoping, as you can see there, and separated them out. So after I rotoscoped those out, we get some nice foreground separation, so it's not overlaid on this, overlaid on the shot completely. And then added a quick adjustment layer with a color grade, and got this final shot. Anyways, that's it guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if you thought this video was helpful. As always, feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. The JBHMedia Facebook page is in the description below, so feel free to like it there if you want to get the latest updates on short films and Blender quick tips. So yeah, leave me a comment below if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see on this channel, and I'll see you guys next time.
What the hell is this place? The place where they made these doctors living things. Sector 9.